Well, hello and welcome everyone who might be watching, and thank you for that follow, Captain Onosa. I hope I'm not butchering your name, but please do let me know if I am. By the way, are you as well taking part in the jam, making a 2D action game possibly? Just because the way you constructed that sentence, I have a hunch that you might be doing something very similar. For those of you who might not know, I am taking part in the Captain Coder's Learn New a Game Jam 2024, which is mostly a game jam, but also something that is hopefully educational for everyone who takes part in it, or just follows anyone who is making a game for this jam. And today I am going to try to continue development of the little action game that I started doing 3 days ago on Saturday. I wanted to continue on Sunday or Monday, but things happened, so I wasn't able to. But that's just how it goes sometimes, I guess. Right, so Captain Onosa also says, our team is making a bullet hell game. Nice. I am going to be all over that once it's up, for sure. I kind of like the genre. For some reason, I tend to gravitate towards bullet hell games and basically any top-down action game. Mostly, for some reason, one of my favorites in the genre. I'm not sure if it's possibly a proper bullet hell game, but it's pretty intense. Nuclear Throne is one of my favorites and go-to games when I want to just do a bunch of random killing with pixel art characters. It's kind of something that I try to replicate in some way for this game that I'm making, but it's really early days. Let me just show you what has been going on Saturday. So the game is basically just a player that is controlled by either the keyboard by pressing the WASD keys or the arrow keys, if that's what you prefer, and you can shoot little projectiles in a different direction, I mean a completely separate direction if you want, using the mouse by clicking or holding the left mouse button, or you can, if you prefer, also use the keyboard keys J, K, L, and I to specify the direction that the player is shooting at. Or, if you prefer, there's also basic gamepad support, so you can control the player by the D-pad or the left analog stick, which is a little better because you can specify the direction that you're moving in at much finer angles. And also, right now, you can shoot by pressing one of the triggers on the gamepad and using the right analog stick to specify the direction. So it's a proper twin stick shooter. I mean, it's not, but it's going to be, hopefully. That is where we are at this point. The game looks like crap because I'm only doing programmer art at first, but if all goes well, I think in a couple days I'm going to replace the art with some proper assets by actual graphic designers. Unfortunately, I'm totally horrible at making art, so I'm either going to use pre-made assets. I'm pretty sure that I have quite a few great asset libraries marked as favorites on itch, so I either do something like that and use some freely available ones, or possibly ask my friend Tibor, who usually does graphics for the games that I'm making, but I'm not sure if he will have the time, but hopefully he will, so it's quite possible that some custom made graphics will be in this game as well, and I'm going to check chat from time to time. So the captain said that they haven't heard of that game. You should totally freaking check it out. Nuclear Throne is an amazing top-down action game with kind of a hard difficulty curve, to be honest. And it was made by Vlambeer, who are also responsible for Luftrausers and Super Crate Box and Ridiculous Fishing, if I'm not confusing them with someone else. They are really good at making action games and juicy ones as well. So yeah, I'm going to juice this game up at one point, hopefully, too. Oh, hey there, Flavius. Good to see you. Thank you for the fart. Yes, I'm wearing one of the amazing shirts by the Two Nerdy Nerds. I mean, they have two, and I have both of them. So I thought that I should probably switch things around because I've been streaming. I think the last two times in my red Nerdy Nerd shirt. So it was time to bring out this little number, which is pretty great, especially if you don't know the lore behind it. Then it might be even a little funnier than if you do. Yeah. So the captain also said that twin stick shooter, yeah, good start. I hope, yeah. I really need to add some basic stuff because, yeah, this is nothing yet, but the plan is to add some obstacles, some enemies, some walls, maybe a bigger level, some camera action. This is the plan for today. Ridiculous fishing, yeah, then you'll probably like Nuclear Throne as well. Kind of different art style if I remember correctly, but yeah, it's amazing. Flavius, you'll get this shirt as well. We'll have the whole collection then. I don't have the mugs yet, but I'm planning to purchase them at one point as well. And hey, Samu, köszi, hogy benéztél te is. Most kezdtél csinálni egy kis gémet, leköltve a dolgokat, nagyon jól teszed. A játékot fel fogom tenni nyilván mindenhol majd, itt se, meg ilyenek. A YouTube csatornámon pedig ott megtalálod a streamnek mindig a lementett verzióját, szóval, hogyha szeretnéd, akkor vissza tudod őket nézni. Sorry guys, I am Hungarian, by the way. And from time to time I might switch to Hungarian if someone interacts with me in Hungarian. And Shamu has been, I think Shamu is the first follower that I got on Twitch actually, so yeah. That's about it. So let's check the notepad. So this was the basic idea. I don't think I'm going to go through that. I probably said everything that is listed right here. The game is going to be the top-down shooter with multi-platform support. So I want to support keyboard, gamepad, mouse, and at one point touch screen input as well. I want the game to be playable on mobile and tablet devices as well. And possibly add multiplayer, maybe not, we'll see how it goes. I try to make things so it's easy to add multiplayer later, of course only local couch mode stuff. And yeah, so the first day, which was on Saturday, was this little to-do list. Player movement and player aiming is working. I do have a little note saying that I made a little bit of a mistake, not a huge one, but I'm going to fix something in a second. And also talk about the dead zone stuff, because I kind of forgot to mention, because with gamepad controls, and now I'm switching over to Construct 3, the engine that I'm using to develop this game. So in Construct, the gamepad's dead zone stuff is already handled to an extent. So with the gamepads and gamepad controls, if you're using the analog sticks, you should be aware that some analog sticks are not completely centered when you're not touching the sticks. So it's quite possible that little jitters come off from the gamepad, and basically the gamepad is not always sending 0 and 0 when they are centered, especially if you move the stick around and then release it. It's quite possible that it's not going to get centered. And usually games handle this by setting a certain dead zone, which means that if you only move the stick a little bit, then this movement is ignored and it's not sent to the game, or the game ignores it, to be more precise. And in Construct, if you click the gamepad object, you can actually set this analog dead zone right here, and you can set it at runtime as well, so you can make it configurable if you want for the player. But by default, it's using this 25 value, and for reference, the analog handling stuff in Construct works in a -100 to 100 scale. So if I'm pressing, for example, the left analog stick all the way to the left, then on the x-axis I'm going to read -100. And if I'm pressing it all the way to the right, it's going to read 100. And ideally, it should read 0 when it's centered. But if the analog dead zone is set to this default 25 value, then it means that if I'm going to move the analog stick slowly to the left, then at one point it's going to jump from 0 to 25, and then 26, 27, etc. So This is just this default dead zone handling thing, and it's possible to set it to a different value, but I'm going to keep it right now at this point. I mean at this value. And also the other thing that I noted to myself after I watched back the video is that this analog aiming event should use OR blocks. Let me just find this, and in 1 second I'm also going to make a proper plan for today. So analog aiming happens right here, and what this part is doing is that it's checking if the gamepad's right analog axis is not at the center, and it's also checking if the right analog joy's y-axis is not at center. And if either one are not at center, I want to calculate the shooting angle, so the angle that the stick is pointing at. But this should be an OR block, because right now it was an AND block, which means that both these conditions must be true for this action to run. And something happened once again. Oh, a follow. Thank you very much. I have some issues with my second screen, so why the heck am I not able to read who's following? Crap. Sorry about that. I'm still pretty noob at streaming, so yeah, bear with me. So okay, this one is fixed. So either condition, if true, then this action runs. So the shooting angle is calculated even if you don't, for example, only press the left analog stick all the way to the right. I mean the right analog stick, because this is for aiming. So you press it all the way to the right, but you don't move it up or down. Then theoretically this did not run, but right now it does, because you only have to move in one axis to set the shooting angle. And that was it. So let me just remove these little notes from my text file, and we are going to move on to this to-do list very soon. Infinitani, oh, it was you. Yeah, I kind of read your name, but yeah, it's so freaking small on my iPad screen, which I'm using to check on the events. But yeah, I might look into a better application than the stock one. Very good to see you. Hope you're having a good day. Flavius said that when you have time, share the vid with progress in DM. Neato. Do you mean in Discord or do you mean on Twitch? Because I'm not sure that I'm seeing the Discord right. Okay, let me just check real quick. I'm guessing that you have some new developments on your game. I am going to try to find Discord on my iPad. All right, there. And quickly check stuff. Neat. Yeah, unfortunately right now I'm not able to share it on the screen, but whoa, what the heck? This freaking... Okay, I love this start screen. This is amazing. Yeah, Flavius, I don't think that links are filtered out, so if you want to share it with the whole stream, feel free to do so if you have like an upload of this video or anything. This looks freaking amazing. Mushroom Ninja. It has the little input prompts as well. There are actual enemies, as I'm seeing, and I do see a portal as well. This is really neat. You're doing good time. I mean, I'm not sure if this is your first Gaming Godot or not, but this is amazing speed, I think, that you're going at. The pace is really freaking great, I think. Yeah, congrats. Really nicely done. And if you have a demo at any one point, if you're planning to, you know, have a little work in progress version uploaded to itch or something, feel free to send me the link, and I will also gladly share it on stream as well. And I would love to give it a go. I'm not sure what control schemes are you planning to support. I know that keyboard is the first one, but yeah, I am happy to test anything that you make at any one point. So let me just switch back quickly to Twitch. First Gaming Godot, nice. Then you really got the hang of it, I guess. I mean, it must really click with you because you're doing really good pace. So Infinitani also said that I spent the entire day designing overlays for my stream and setting up OBS stuff on the game. That happens. I mean, I think the important thing is that you do something that you enjoy, and that's primarily my attitude towards the whole game dev and streaming stuff as well. So overlays are fun as well. I am really contemplating making one as well, but I don't really have an idea for, you know, how it should look or anything. I'm still waiting for that to occur in my brain. You're gonna start streaming today, actually. Nice. Let me just give you a follow right now, and if I catch you later, I will sure to join and check in a little. Boom, there it is. Oh yeah, the wall climbing and the dashing, it's going to be really neat. And also double jump is gonna be a fun one, I'm pretty sure. I will just hope that it's not going to be a super difficult game, because I do suck at platformers, so yeah. But I'm going to give it a go anyway, so even if it's super hard. Okay, so I think I'm going to get started, and I'm switching to construct. Oh, but first, yeah, I talked about this to-do list stuff. So the plan, and not necessarily for today, but I did make a little to-do list, so hopefully some of these will be ticked through the stream. At first I want to add some obstacles, and I also want to increase the level size or the layout size in construct terms, and have a little follow camera, so the player can move around the big level and the camera will keep tracking them, and with some smoothing, of course, because it's just nice to have a little lerp, but I'm not going to use lerp, and I will go into some detail, why not. And at one point, hopefully, I will actually add the weapon that just rotates around the player if you're aiming anywhere, and make the weapon fire the projectiles, because right now the player is spawning them, which looks a little weird. Also, if that's done, I am going to add player health with some UI, I guess. I'm not sure if I go with the classic HUD or the heads-up display sort of deal, or maybe a little health bar. We'll figure it out. And after that, I'm going to add the first enemy, which will be a super dumb one, who will just try to follow and murder the player once they see them. And destroyed enemies should have something dropped, which can be collected by the player, so like either, you know, cash or XP or something. And at one point I will also want to add some something that I missed in the first part, which is touch input, with some virtual joysticks and whatnot. So I think I'm going to get started soon. Let me just check chat one more time before I do that. Right. Let's go the route of making the overlays and writing the chat CSS. That might be pesky, but it sounds like a nice learning experience. CSS is super useful if you ever want to do anything on the web, so I do recommend it. And I am a web developer by trade, so that's where I come from, and probably that's also one of the reasons that I ended up using Construct, which is running completely in the browser, and everything that you make in Construct also runs in the browser. It's a JavaScript based engine. The inner workings is JavaScript, and you can also add JavaScript if you want, but I usually go with the event sheet system that is in Construct, because you can prototype things so freaking fast that it's ridiculous. It's basically cheating, I think. Okay, so let me just run the game to check if everything is working fine. This is the version 2 that I uploaded on Saturday, and yeah, it's totally browser based. The window that you're seeing is actually Chromium, which is almost the same as Google Chrome. You can install Construct as a progressive web app if you're using Chromium, and then it will run almost like a proper installed application. So you don't see the URL bar and all the rest of the Chromium stuff. But if I click here, it's obviously running in Chromium, and I could even switch to Chromium if I click this, open in Chromium, and boom, then this window just transforms, and it's now a tab in Chromium. So, and if I click one of those, I think I might be able to switch back, or not, or if not, then I will just opening construct. Okay. There we go. Or not. Oh yeah, that is the window. Good. Okay, so yeah. If you ever want to give construct a try, you just have to open editor.construct.net in your browser. Like this. And there are a bunch of really cool examples, although the inner workings of some of the examples are a little, I don't know, tricky. Not necessarily best practice programming stuff in there always, but you can find examples for basically anything that you can do in Construct, which is neat. And if you press a new project, then boom, you're right here. And you can get started super easily. However, there are not so many video tutorials for Construct on YouTube, for example, and this is one of the reasons that I'm trying to make this stream and later the uploaded version, which I'm going to upload to YouTube. So I'm going to try to make it as a tutorial. I talk about how things work specifically in Construct and why I'm doing things and how am I doing things and things like that. So I am going to get started. That was a bunch of talking. I'm almost 30 minutes in the stream and I have not done anything. So let me just rectify that real quick. Okay, so here's our little layout. And right now, the whole layout is this dark gray part that you can see, and the player can move off of it, and they can come back, but the camera is not following them. And also, this layout is too small. So at first, I think I'm just going to click level right here, which is the layout that we are on, which is open in this tab. And right now the size is 640 by 360, which is incidentally the same as the viewport size of the whole game. Okay, sometimes Construct asks for this permission, so that Construct can make automatic backups of the project you're working on, which is really handy. So right now the viewport size is this, and it's also the same as the layout size, but I'm going to double this. So I'm just going to say, yep, this one. And right now, as you can see, the layout is now twice as big, or 4 times as big to be precise. It's twice the width and twice the height. But if I run the game, then nothing really changed seemingly. The player can still move off the screen and come back, but the camera is not following them. So there are a couple of ways to make the camera follow the player, and I'm not sure if it's really visible on the stream, hopefully it is, but there's actually this little dashed line going right here. And this is the viewport, which is really the camera. So if you want the camera to move, then this part basically will move on the layout. And to make things a little more visible, I think I'm just going to add a new object. Go with tiled background, and I'm going to do something really lazy. Make a little 2 pixel by 2 pixel drawing, and make a little checkerboard, basically just 2 white and 2 black pixels. So if I move this to the top left position, tiled background objects also have origins that you can move, but you can only set them to a few predetermined values, and by default they are top left facing. So this is the origin, and I just want to copy the size of the whole layout and paste it to this object. So now it covers the whole layout. And sorry if I'm not checking chat too frequently. I tend to forget about that a few times. 640 by 360, the same resolution. It's a really good resolution, I think, especially if you're making some not so high def games anyway. Although Construct can scale things up if you're using a bigger resolution, but yeah, you can opt in to have, for example, bilinear filtering on it or not. By default, I tend to just leave it at the nearest neighbor sampling, which you can set right here, so it's not blurry at all. Okay, so I do have this tiled background, which I'm just going to rename to ground, because this is going to be the ground texture at one point. Right now it's this horrible checkerboard pattern. At first I'm going to right click it and say Z order send to bottom of layer. We only have one layer at this point, but you can of course set things on this layer by Z order to basically anywhere, so things can cover other things. And also I am going to change some properties on this tiled background object called ground. At first I'm going to say the image scale should be like, I don't know, 1000 by 1000, which means that the little drawing that I made is actually bigger, scaled up 10 times, so this is like 10 pixel grid. And also I'm going to decrease the opacity to 10%, so it's not as freaking harsh as it was. I'm going to tone it down a little more. So now it's 5%, and this is just so we can see if the player is actually moving, because if it's only a single solid color, then it's not really visible. I'm just going to increase it a little more, so this is now basically a 20 pixel grid. Okay, so what I'm going to show first is how to make the camera follow the player rigidly. I'm just going to click the player object and I'm going to add one more behavior. We only have two. One is the A direction movement behavior, which we're using to move the player around, and we also have a little timer which we're using for the firing cooldown stuff. So if the player presses the fire button, then they will start spawning projectiles, but they do have a limit, so they start a little timer, and when the timer is up and the player is still pressing the fire button, then another projectile should spawn. So I'm going to add another behavior for this. Hey Flavius, glad to have you back. And I am going to find scroll 2. This behavior is quite simple. It doesn't really have any properties right here, it's just either enabled or not. And now if I run the game and try moving around with the player, as you can see that now the camera follows them, which was quite an easy task to do. However, the camera will stop at the edges of the layout, and the player can still move outside, of course, but at least we have some basic following going on now. And sometimes you might not want to have the camera stop at the bounds of the layout. In this case, you need to go to the layout properties just by clicking outside of everything randomly. So if you don't select anything, just click here, for example, then the layout is already selected, or you can also do it by clicking here. And you can check in unbounded scrolling. And if I run the game with unbounded scrolling, then the player will always be centered, because the camera won't care about the bounds of the layout in this case. So, and this way you can move outside of the layout, of course, which you can do even if the camera is not following, but right now it is. So yeah, that's how this works. I'm going to remove the little check mark from here, because I think I'm going to use a level that has probably walls around it or something, and I don't want the player to leave the bounds of the layout. Okay, so this is still a little harsh for my eyes, so I'm just going to reduce it a little further, the opacity of this ground object. And also I'm going to remove the scroll to behavior from the player, and I will show you why. Because if I have scroll to behavior on the player, then it just means that they always the camera always follows the player, but there is no camera smoothing going on or nothing like that, which is not what I want. So I am going to add another object, which will be a sprite and an invisible sprite. I usually name this camera helper. Oops, caps lock. And usually I just draw a little circle, but it doesn't really matter what I draw, what it looks like, because we are not going to show it anyway. This will be just an invisible object at one point. So yeah, this will be our little camera helper stuff, and I'm going to add the scroll to behavior on this object instead of the player. And I will show you in 1 second why this is useful. Meanwhile, I think I got another follow and I'm already missing stuff. Damn. I'm such a noob at this. Okay, now I think. Spaghetti Code Factory, welcome. All right, nice. I think I saw your name a couple times on Twitch. And I'm pretty sure that you're also working on a game, right? For the Captain Coder Jam. Feel free to show any stuff in chat if you want. I think links are allowed. But if not, then feel free to send me a whisper me a link or something if you want, of course, no pressure. What sort of game are you? I'm not quite sure. I have the freaking worst memory. I think I saw your game in Discord, but I really can't recall. Please feel free to share. Okay, so meanwhile we have this separate object right now. I'm just going to run the game and check if it's there. Yeah, so now the player is once again moving, but the camera is not following them. However, I do want this object to move with the player, but I want them to have a little delay. So how this should work, I think I'm just going to center it on the player and maybe move it to the bottom and possibly increase its size a little so we see what's going on. And at one point, as I said, I'm going to hide this object so it's not visible anymore. And we can go to main, and under main we have this every tick event which runs at every frame, and we only do two things at this point. One is calling the player's handle input custom action, which is mostly a function, and the other custom action that we call is tick, which is just a determined construct for every frame or every I said in the first video in Godot it's update, but it's not, it's process. I think there's like process and physics process or something in Godot, so every tick is essentially process in Godot. It just runs all the freaking time. And as we are calling the player's tick event, I mean custom action, I can do something like position the camera helper to the player's position, and I'm just going to say at first set position and players.x and players.y. I could say player as well, but for some reason I prefer to add some objects, for example the player, to a family called players and have all the instance variables like these and all the behaviors on the family instead of the object, but the object inherits everything from the family, so it just means the same. So right now, if I have this little action here that says camera helper set position to players.x and y, and if I run the game, then as you can see, once again the camera is following the player, but actually the camera is following the camera helper object, and the camera helper object is following the player. So that's how it works. But the camera is still quite rigid. So if I move and stop, then the camera moves and stops immediately. There is no smoothing going on. And to have that, I am going to copy some neat function from a template that I have that I forgot to open. But 1 second, bear with me. I think this is the one. And at this point, it's also a good idea, I think, to mention this little video. If any of you heard of linear interpolation or LERP, then you might know that this is a function that essentially makes some values follow other values and eventually reach them. But the problem using LERP is that LERP is not using data time, which is another tricky term in game dev. And to have frame rate independent games, so games that run essentially the same on slower and faster computers, or not even slower and faster computers, but for example, computers that have slower or faster refresh rate displays. For example, I'm using a 50 or 60 Hertz display, but I also have another monitor which has 144 Hertz display. And ideally the game should run at the same speed as the display if the VSync is turned on. but this could also mean that some things are happening faster or slower on different refresh rates, which is not ideal. And this little video that I just opened from the note is by Freya Holmer, who is an amazing, I think, mathematician, I can probably say that, also a game dev, and they are also on Twitch. And they have this really neat and long presentation on why lerp is bad. And without going too much into the mathematics, the bottom line is that using lerp in most cases is bad because lerp doesn't factor in the delta time. So it will be frame rate dependent, which means that the camera will scroll faster or slower if I want to use lerp for camera smoothing. So the camera will go faster or slower depending on the refresh rate, which is not great. And instead, Freya has this little exponential decay or something called function, and I'm just going to yoink that from my template and put it right here, I think, although I might just yoink the whole event sheet which has this these functions, because some of them might also come handy. So my usual construct template looks like this. There are a bunch of event sheets. Most of them are completely empty. For example, these. I put a little underscore in the completely empty ones. And some of them, some of the sheets might have some stuff in them, but not too much. But the most important part is this utilities sheet. I do have a little prefix in their name with a little f, denoting that it only has some functions in it and nothing else, no events or variables. So I'm just going to yoink this utilities event sheet from my template, and I'm going to create a folder called functions. Whoa, let me just check, because I see something in chat, or someone to be precise. Resurrected Studio, welcome to the stream. Almost 34 followers, yep. And hey Bernardo, it's good to see you. Isn't my shirt nice, by the way? Thanks for checking in, I appreciate it a lot. Yeah, I'm doing super well. I hope your day is going fine as well. And I hope you guys are going to stream in the evening, because I already have my little calendar event that notifies me not to forget to join. I probably won't do a raid today, because I'm pretty sure that in an hour or two my streamer brain is going to kick in. So I will probably not last until 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock or what time you're starting. But yeah. That's not a huge difference anyway, because I only have a few viewers anyway. So okay, where was I? I got a little distracted, but this is totally fine. This is not Seto level stuff anyway. I can manage. Okay, so I was yoinking this function sheet from the template, yes. And now that I have the utilities event sheet in my game, I can just call any of these functions, and the xdecay function, which stands for exponential decay if I remember correctly, will be the one that I use to smooth the camera movement. So right here under the tick custom action of the player, I'm going to replace some things. So instead of rigidly moving the camera helper object right to the player's position, I'm going to say functions.xdecay, and this is very similar to the lerp function that you usually have in any game engine. It has a from and a to parameter, and it also has a third one which signifies how fast or slow the smoothing should occur, how drastic it should be. So I'm definitely going to say from and to is camera helper.x, or I can also say self.x, which is the same as camera helper.x in this context, because in construct, if you are making an action that is related to an object, in this case camera helper, you can always refer to it as self, which I usually prefer to do, but you can also write camera helper as well. That's whatever floats your boat. So I'm just going to say self.x, and this is the source, basically what I want to gradually or where I want to move to the second parameter, which is players.x, which is the player's X position. And the third parameter is something that should be usually between 1 and 25. This is a little weird. This is not how lerp works, because in using lerp, you usually say something like between 0 but not 0 and 1. And so you would say, in this case, something like 0.1, for example. But right now, I think I'm just going to, I don't know, try 5 at first. And I'm going to copy all of this and do a little change. So it does the same for the Y position of the camera helper object and also the player object. Okay, I am also going to check chat. Infinite Annie said that I just made my own little Spotify current song element in OBS, slowly getting the hang of it. Please excuse me. That's totally freaking fine. By the way, I also have one that I made myself. So the one that you're seeing on the little overlay, it's super ugly, but it is something that I kind of found on GitHub, but I customized it a little bit so it has the album cover as well. And it's actually not hooked up to Spotify directly, but my Spotify is hooked up to my Last.fm account, which is, I know, a very boomer thing to have, but yeah, I've been using Last.fm for like 15 years or something. It's just a little service that logs everything that you listen to, so you can basically go back in time and check what songs have you been listening to in the last 15 years and in what order and at what timestamp. It's neat. So every time I play something in my Spotify account, it gets sent to Last.fm, and this little widget that I have that you see on the screen is actually querying the Last.fm public API at certain intervals, I think a couple of seconds or something. And yeah, that's how it works. So I'm also listening via Spotify, and the overlay also displays my Spotify, I mean the song that I'm listening to on Spotify, but with the added trick that it's actually fetching stuff from the Last.fm API. I think I might have this stuff on my GitHub anyway, so if you want to take a look, possibly. I don't know if I made the project public. Quick detour. Oh yeah, it is right here. Yeah, I forked some other repo. So yeah, I mean, if you already made it, then it might not be super interesting for you, but just in case, GitHub/Foddy, and you can find the Last.fm OBS overlay repo right here, which is just a little dinky HTML and JavaScript client-side web app or something. It's literally one file, and all the JavaScript is inline, so it should be quite straightforward to use. You just need to grab a API key and the username from Last.fm, and you can add this local HTML file as a browser source in OBS, I think. So yeah. Just made a new window source and cropped it to show the title of the song. That's what was my first plan anyway. Yeah. But I figured that if I ever want to listen to something else, not Spotify, then I can also, if I can also hook it up to Last.fm, then using this overlay would also work. For example, I use XMPlay, which is a super retro music player app. It usually starts up pretty fast, but my and I started it 2 times at least, so it looks like Winamp right now because it has support for all the Winamp skins. Yeah, I'm 37. I used Winamp. Big whoop. So XMPlay is just a little simple music player stuff, but you can also install a little third-party plugin, and everything that you listen in XMPlay can get sent to Last.fm as well. So I could listen to something via XMPlay, and it will still show up on my OBS browser source overlay thing. So yeah, that's why I went for this. But usually I just listen to Spotify. This is the classic lo-fi girl, lo-fi hip-hop stuff, the playlist that gets usually updated every few days or something. It's neat. Yeah. Oh, hey, the Captain Coder is here. Nice. Yeah, I'm blabbing and I'm not doing the actual game dev that I started, but yeah, I am going to move back to the project right now. I got distracted. It's not my fault. It was chat. It was always chat. Okay. So, I think I probably did not screw up anything with this camera smoothing, but let me just check. So, if I now move... Oh yeah, indeed. So the little blue object that you see is the camera helper object. And the camera is following that one instead of the player. The player is the little white circle. And now the camera is getting smoothed. Oof, that's a word. So if I, for example, move and then quickly stop, then the camera will have a little smooth tweening, basically, movement. And I can also change directions quickly, but the camera will have a little delay, essentially. So yeah, this is mostly what I wanted to achieve. Let me just check my notes. Increase layout size, add follow camera with XDK smoothing because LERP is bad. Done. I am ticking that. So at this point, I think I'm just going to quickly make a little export. But first, I think I'm going to hide the camera helper object, which is now in the wrong Z order, I think. Okay, so camera helper is right here, and I don't want to see it, so I'm just going to remove the checkbox, the initially visible check mark, I mean, from here. And I also don't really care about the collisions of this object, so just for performance purposes, I'm also going to remove this. I don't want the collision detection to work on this object, because this object will just ultimately end up where the player is. So yeah, I'm going to save it, quickly run it, and if everything is working fine, I'm going to update the game on Itch, so you guys can try it out. Not that it's very much to look at this point, but yeah, it will be, hopefully, at one point, something interesting. Okay, so works fine. I'm going to say export, of course, web, and I'm not going to set anything in the settings. The default will be more than fine. So Construct is now making the web export, and I'm just going to save the zip file. Yes, and overwrite previous one. And I am also going to... Oof, my computer's freaking dying. It's a little dinky Lenovo ThinkPad with an i5 CPU and no GPU, I mean no dedicated GPU, so streaming and working in Chromium is stretching it a bit. Okay, so now the streamgame.zip file is generated. It's the latest one, and I'm just going to run the little script that uploads it using Butler, the official Itch CLI, to my Itch page, and hopefully it will in a few seconds end up right there. Okay, so it looks like it went through. I'm just going to reload the Itch page. Yeah, it's still the old version, I think. It sometimes takes a few seconds. Okay, so now this loader is showing up, which means that Itch definitely got my new release. So yep, there it is. So right now, if you want to click the link below the video for the stream game, you can also, I think, use the chat command game, and the bot will just give you the link. And I'm also going to check chat because I always forget about it. And also I'm going to enter the little chat command. Okay. Oof, I missed a few things. Yeah, what's this cat paint stuff? This is something new. I saw this mentioned a couple times. I think in Beeks' stream, for example, this afternoon. Looking smooth, yep. Lerp is, nah, I'm not going to use Lerp because Lerp is bad if you're not factoring in the delta time, so yeah. New follow behavior is also good for SmoothCam. Yeah, Resurrected Studio, you have an excellent point. It's probably good for that. In Construct, there are a bunch of behaviors for those of you who don't really know Construct, but Resurrected Studio does because they are hardcore Construct devs. This follow behavior landed in Construct a couple of releases ago, I think in a few months ago or something. And it can make objects follow different objects, literally. So either you can set, for example, second object to follow the first object's position, or you can even do something like follow the opacity or size, rotation, stuff like this. So essentially, I probably could use the follow behavior on the camera helper sprite that I'm using, but yeah, I usually just do this scroll to behavior, so the camera is always centered on the camera helper sprite, and move the camera helper sprite using this neat function that I mentioned earlier. So yeah, and I can set the factor as well pretty easily, so I can slow or make the camera go slower or faster. So yeah. A stream PC, yeah, I actually have a better laptop, but it's heavy, and I usually don't move it around, and the place that I'm streaming from is not my home, actually. It's an office of a friend, so yeah, I should really, maybe move my other laptop, which is a little faster, to this location and just use it as a stream PC, because yeah, this work laptop that I'm usually using for web dev stuff is not really sufficient. Okay, so I'm just going to check the checklist. Obstacles, right, okay. So these shouldn't take long. I'm just going to add some really simple obstacles on the level now. Also, this little ground object, I think I'm going to lock in position because I don't want to accidentally select it anymore. But if I wanted to, I could do this, and then it's possible to select it again. Or I could even move it to another layer and lock that, but right now this is all right, I think. Okay, so I want to add some walls, and the good question is that what sort of object should I make it? Because it's possible to have sprite walls, for example, but sprites, the graphics of the sprite objects are stretched if you size them. Then you also have the option to use the tiled background type, which is essentially what the ground object is made of, and it just tiles the graphics that you add to it. Or also it's possible to use the NimePatch type, which is, if you ever used NimePatch in any other engine or possibly some mobile development environment, then you know that it's similar to a tiled graphics, but it can also have different edges and corners that you specify by setting essentially padding on the graphics, and these will be repeated accordingly. So I think I might go with the NimePatch for now, but later I might add some other types of walls. But okay, so just to have the most basic wall, because I am only using Programmer Art at this point, which I might replace, I really hope to replace at one point with some proper assets. But I'm just going to draw a little square, something like this. And I'm going to set the properties of this NimePatch type. So the left margin is 1 pixel and all the other margins are also 1 pixel. That's it. So I have a little margin, which is black, because the pattern that I defined has this little 1 pixel margin, although I don't really like it, so I think I'm just going to increase it a little. Oh, that was handy. And I'm going to say 2 pixel margins, so it's a little thicker. Okay, so just like with the tiled background type object, you can set the origin of this, but only to these presets. So I think I'm going to go with the center origin. So the origin, the position of this object is its midpoint. And I'm just going to add the behavior to this, which is called solid. Now, a little intro for those of you who might not know Construct. In Construct, there are a bunch of predefined movement behaviors that you can use. We are using the A direction one on the player, even though we are not necessarily moving the player in only the 8 directions, because we do have analog gamepad support, for example. But it's also possible to use that A direction behavior and have the object move in any angle. So we're using this, and if I use this, or essentially any of these predefined movement behaviors except for physics, then I can use this solid behavior to tell the engine that something is an obstacle, and if I have an object that has, for example, a direction or car or bullet or platform behavior, then they shouldn't overlap the solid object. So the engine will try to keep things separate in this case. Resurrected Studio, quick note, go ahead. I am indeed listening. Or I'm not sure, sorry, because I only check chat every couple minutes. I'm not so sure what you meant, but feel free to add anything to anything that I'm making. Meanwhile, I'm just going to copy the object and have a few instances of them. I'm just moving them with the mouse, pressing Ctrl+C and Ctrl+V and clicking somewhere to have some copies of the same object. So all of these objects are, I'm going to name them wall, are of this wall object type, which has the 9-patch not behavior, but they are made of 9-patch object types. So let me just add a few more. And also I think I'm going to make some walls around the level. This might not be the best way to do it, but it works. So I'm just going to use that. And since they all have the solid behavior, then they should really prevent the player from overlapping them. And we'll check that in 1 minute if it works. Yeah, this is a really noob way to do it, but I'm all right with that. Boom. One other thing that is also possible to have the player also use the behavior called bound to layout, which also prevents the player from leaving the bounds of the layout. But I tend not to use that. But I totally could. Okay, so let me just run the game. Bullet is not by default. Yes, that's absolutely correct. Good catch. And please feel free to correct me at any time, because I am saying some weird stuff at points, because yeah, streamer brain is probably kicking in. So if I add, for example, the bullet behavior on this little transparent sprite that I just added, bounce of solids is not checked in, which means that anything, any solid object that this sprite collides with will just, they just won't stand in the way of this. But if I check this in, then they will bounce off solids. So yeah. And also, I think something similar goes for the move to behavior, and it can stop at solids. And it's probably not checked in by default as well. I'm just going to remove the sprite. It was for demonstration purposes. Okay, so I'm going to run the game now and see if things are working or not. Boom. Okay, this is nice. So now I can't overlap with my player, and I can also not leave the bounds of the layout, because I put a bunch of walls outside the layout but they are not showing because they are outside the layout, and the camera is not going to move outside the layout as well, because I don't have the unbounded layout, or what it's called, unbounded scrolling property checked in. If I do, then it will be possible to see the little walls around the level, because the camera is then now not bound to the layout. So, yep, this is mostly it. I'm just going to check one thing. Is pixel rounding on? No, it's not. Okay, good. It shouldn't be. Okay, that's all right. So I want to check this at this point, even though the walls are looking super horrible. They are just black and white rectangles, but they are walls, and it's not possible to cross them anymore. So yeah. Also, I'm going to check one more thing. Yes. So one thing that I usually have enabled for a direction behavior objects is this allow sliding property. So if I check this and I just move to the left, then as you can see, the player will kind of slide along this rotated wall like this, which is nice, I think. If I disable it, then they will just stop. Boom. So yeah, I think this is probably better UX at this point. So I'm going to allow sliding, and this means that the player can just slide along walls. Yep. I think there's probably some sort of limit, which is, I think it's not possible to change, which determines if the player will slide along or not. But let me just, for example, check this. Yeah, for example, this time this angle is too sharp, so the player won't slide along this. But if I rotate it a little more, I think it should be around, I don't know, 20-30 degrees or something. This will probably, yeah. So the player will slide along this. Oof, they can't fit here. That's all right. Let me just make a little room. Neat. Okay, so this is, I think, all right at this point. I'm just going to save. And it's high time that I make a new version of the project file as well. So let me just bump up the version number from 2 to 3, and I'm going to save the project as a new file. I tend to do this because, I don't know, habit. I'm just going to say v3 instead of 2. So I mentioned in the previous video that in Construct you can either save project files, which just puts the whole everything in your project into one file, which is a zip file, but it has the extension C3P, or the other way is to have Construct use project folders, which is very similar to how Godot works, for example, and I'm guessing Unity and all the other engines as well, which is of course a lot better if you're going to use version control software like Git or probably Git, because no one uses SVN and Mercurial, I think, not for game dev anyway, usually, but I might be wrong. Still, it's easier to have these little single project files for small projects, so I just tend to use them. And also I'm storing everything in Dropbox, which also acts as a sort of backup, an automatic backup, because Dropbox tends to keep previous versions of the same file on their servers. So every time I save a project file, then Dropbox will upload the new version to their servers, but they will also keep a few versions back, which is neat because I did make some mistakes in the past that I was able to recover from using the built-in history or previous versions feature of Dropbox, which is neat. So yeah, but also Dropbox doesn't like emoji file names, and since I'm using emojis in, for example, event sheet names, I think I only use them in event sheet names, and solely for the purpose to locate event sheets by looking at them in the top tab bar. So yeah, But if you're using project folders instead of single file projects, then these emojis will make it into the project structure. So the event sheet file will have the emoji in it, which is not ideal because Dropbox will not sync emoji file names. So yeah, that's a trade-off, I guess. But it's also I don't think that too many people suffer from this. It's just how I do things, and yeah, that's it. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next item on the checklist, which is first weapon and make it fire the first projectile, which we already have in game. So let's just go with that. So I think I mentioned nuclear throne earlier in the stream. I'm going to do something very similar to how things work in nuclear throne, which also means that it's kind of a cheap solution, but it works fine, I think. So in nuclear throne, the player sprite will either face to the left or to the right, and the weapon will just essentially rotate around the player if you are aiming, either with the right analog stick on the gamepad or using the mouse. So I just need to add the little sprite, which has a direction and a origin point set outside their bounding box, essentially. I'm using the correct term. So I will just need to rotate the sprite in the direction that the mouse or the right analog stick is looking at. Let me just show you, it will be probably quicker. So I'm going to add the sprite. I'm not even going to change the animation name at this point, I think, but I'm just going to say, like, I don't know, 16 by 4, and I'm just going to paint the whole thing, I don't know, red, maybe, or maybe black, whatever. So this will be the weapon. Okay, it's a little small. I could either resize it on the layout, but I might also just increase the size of the actual sprite, the animation, I mean. Do this, and essentially I just want to have it, for example, right here, and I want to rotate it, but not like this. I already mentioned that the origin point of this needs to be set differently. I'm just going to move it to the left. Everything in Construct is by default in the 0 degree angle, which means that it is facing right. So if, as you might be able to see, it's a little small, and if I zoom in, it's just small. Never mind. So this is the actual origin point of this right now, which I'm going to name weapon anyway. And I can just move this right here, but to be precise, I think I'm just going to select my player and copy the position, the coordinates, and paste it for the weapon. So it's essentially at the same location right now. I'm also going to move it a little further, just a few pixels. Okay. Did I do that, or? Okay, cool. Maybe now it's too far. Never mind. Okay, I'm just going to show you what's going to happen. So if I rotate the sprite now, this will have roughly the effect that I'm after. So it's rotating around the sprite because their origin point is right here outside of their actual animation. So this is it. Hydrate, posture check, stretch. Really nice. Thank you, Flavius. It is a welcome notification. I do tend to forget about this. I really need to set up some actual commands like the captain has, I think, because I don't really plan on going affiliate anyway. So yeah, I should just add some chat commands that notify me about this sort of thing. Okay, so weapon is now a sprite, but the problem is that if I run the game right now, then the player will move, but the weapon won't follow him. And there are a couple of ways to do that. For example, I could do something like the thing that I did with the camera helper, but I probably won't, because I don't really want the weapon to lerp, or not lerp, but to follow the player with a little delay. I just want to have it at always the same position of the player. And an easy way to do this is actually to create a hierarchy between the two objects. So it's a parent-child relationship. And to do this, you have to first select the object in the layout editor that you want to be the child of another object. Then keep pressing Control or Shift and select the second object, which will be the parent, and then right click to be precise, and say hierarchy and add selection to this instance. And now, if I move this object a little further, since they had the same origin, then it's not really possible to see this little green arrow. But if I move the object a little further, then it's possible to see that it's actually noted in the editor that, okay, these two are related. So I'm just going to set the position back to the player's position. And if I now select the weapon object, then there is this new hierarchy part in the properties. And right now you can select which properties do you want to essentially synchronize to the parent object. So if I just run the game as is, it's mostly fine, but as you can see, the angle of the player is actually propagated to the weapon as well, which is not what I want, because I want this to be a twin stick shooter and I want to specify the direction of the weapon separately. Also, I think I'm going to move that origin point a little closer because it's too far away from the player. And also the weapon might be a little big, but never mind, this is also just programmer art, so I'm going to replace it at one point anyway. So I want to keep synchronizing the X and Y position, of course. I don't think I want to synchronize the Z elevation because I'm not going to change the Z elevation in game usually. In 2D games you don't really do that. The width and the height, if the width and the height of the player should change, then still I don't think the size of the weapon should change, so I'm just going to remove these checkboxes as well. And the angle is right now also synchronized, which we saw earlier, so I'm just going to remove this as well. And it's possible to synchronize the opacity of the player, which is a 0 to 100 scale. But I really don't think I want that. And you can also transform the visibility, which is just a true or false value. So if I make the player invisible, then the weapon will be invisible as well. I don't think I will probably do that, but in case I do, why not? And also there's this destroy with parent option, which means that if I destroy the instance of the player object, then the related weapon object will also get destroyed, which is probably useful if I ever want to do that. So yeah, why not? I'm just going to keep this in. I will also run the game and check chat as well. Spontaneous combustion. Oof, it is freaking hot in here, by the way. So yeah, I'm almost combusting at this point. Is that a word? I don't know. I don't think he can do that. Yeah, I might. Only 2 more followers needed for the goal. Yeah, hopefully we will reach it at one point. There's also a question, if I see correctly. How would you handle rotation with regards to the mouse instead of the joystick in Construct? Can you generate a vector from the mouse position as well? Or is it just look towards the mouse cursor? Yeah, let me just digest this question so I don't start answering the wrong one. Can you generate a vector from the mouse position as well? I mean, by vector, if I think I know what you mean. So right now, the aiming is done either by the mouse or the gamepad. So right now, if my gamepad is probably sleeping, okay. So it's possible to shoot in one direction and move in another, and it's also possible to do the same thing with the mouse. So right now, if I click, then projectiles will already spawn from the player and not from the weapon, but this is something that we're going to rectify in a second. And this is done by calculating the angle between the player and the mouse cursor. And it's done right here, I think. Yes. So if the mouse left button is down, then I am doing this calculation. So from the player's position to the mouse cursor's position, I'm going to ask construct to calculate the angle. So this is what I'm doing at this point. And this also says the instance variable shooting angle, so I can just reuse this angle and launch the projectiles at that angle. However, in Construct there are two ways to create object instances during runtime. One of them is under System, and it's called Create Object, and it also has a variant called Create Object by Name, where you specify a string. So you can, for example, in Create Object, you have to choose from a list, but in Create Object by Name, you can just reference an object type, name, or a family by specifying a string. So this is one way to do it, and the other way is to have another object spawn something. For example, there was this little disabled action that did this. So the player's family, or the player object to be precise, because this is the only object type in that family, is spawning an object, and if I use this, then the object will inherit the position of the parent object. I don't really like saying parent in this case, because parent and child is more for, you know, hierarchy stuff. But yeah, if I use the spawn another object action, this one, then the object will have the same angle as the object that is spawning them, so the parent. And I can also set an image point on the parent, if I have one, to have it positioned to somewhere else, not the origin of the parent. But if I don't use this, instead I use the create object action, then I can set any position, and I cannot set the angle right here, but right after the projectile action is, the create object action is run, then you can also reference the newly created object and have a separate set angle action, for example, to set its angle. So back to the question. This is basically getting the direction of the cursor. Yes, exactly. I mean, the direction or the angle that is calculated from the position of the player related to the position of the mouse cursor. So yeah, this little thing is the most important part at this point. And I'm using this sort of thing for the gamepad controls as well. So just a little, yeah, right here. So this is the keyboard aiming stuff, but I'm also using this sort of thing in the keyboard aiming, because it's possible to shoot with the keyboard as well, only with the keyboard, not the mouse. And here's the analog aiming stuff. So if the right analog joystick's X or Y axis are not at the 0 position, then I'm calculating the angle that the player is shooting at using the same system expression, which is this one, angle. And it just needs two X and Y coordinates. First the source, and the second one is the object that is further from the source, and the angle will be calculated accordingly. In this case, gamepad axis returns a value between -100 and 100. If the gamepad analog stick is centered, then it will return 0. So yeah, this is why the first two parameters in the angle system expression are set to 0 and 0, because this is the center. And yeah, hope that answers your question. But as you already mentioned, this look towards mouse cursor thing is also possible. There's an action that does exactly that, and also sets the angle of a projectile. Now I want to change some things right here. So the player has this custom action called tick, and not to confuse with a technique, but yeah, this is where the shooting happens. So if the player is pressing the shooting input, however they are pressing it, and the player is not running the fire cooldown timer, then we are creating the object right here. However, I want the projectile object to be spawned not by the player anymore, but by the weapon. And the weapon is also a child in the hierarchy of the player. So just in case we are making this multiplayer at any one point, I think I'm just going to say, let's pick the weapon object instance that is related to the player, and have the weapon object spawn the projectile. And also to do this, so the weapon is just a big freaking black rectangle, but I'm going to create a new image point for this. You can create as many as you like, and you can set it to a position that is the end of the barrel of the gun, in this case, so this part. And I'm going to name it. I can also either go with something like projectile spawn or something. I'm going to be a cheapskate and just say projectile, so I don't have to create an enum for it, or not an enum, a macro for it. I can just use the object. No, I'm not going to be a cheapskate. I'm going to create an image point macro for this. So I'm just going to add a comment, say image points in my macros event sheet, and I'm just going to create a macro, which is essentially simply a global constant. So I'm going to prefix it with IP, which stands for image point, and I'm going to say barrel, might as well. I'm going to set it a string, have the value set to this, and make it a constant, and move it right here. So I can just use this constant now when I'm going to specify the image point when the projectile should spawn. And if I ever change my mind about, for example, how it's named, I can just rename the image point in the weapon animation and rename the macro, and that's it. All instances which use these this macro will automatically update. It's refactoring, really neat, and it's automatic. So I now rename the image point to barrel. Let me just check if I haven't made any typos, hopefully not. And right here, I think I'm just going to say players pick children and say weapon. This is not necessary at this point, because if I don't do this, then all instances of the weapon object will be picked, which is only one instance, and there's only one player. However, I want to kind of do things in a way that would facilitate turning this game into local multiplayer. So if one player is shooting, then I don't want the other player's weapon to fire, because that would be weird. So right here, we are just picking the right instance of the weapon object that is belonging to the player. And we are, of course, not specifying which player, because there's only one, but later we can specify which player shoots. So yeah. Okay. So if we already picked the weapon instance, then we can probably use the weapon object spawn another, what did I do? Spawn another object action and say projectile, and the layer should be the main layer, and I'm still missing the macro. 1 second. And image point, we already created a constant for this. Using the macro or this global constant is also neat, because you get the autocomplete. And it's not possible to make a typo in it, because I can't do this, for example. It's marked red and construct won't let me save this. So yeah, it's better than using a string literal like this, because I can make a typo in it and it will not work. But there won't be an error, because construct won't care about that you are referencing an image point that doesn't exist. So this is why I do this. Okay, it's not going to have a hierarchy at this point, so I'm just going to leave this unchecked, and I'm going to say done. I'm going to disable this one, and I am also going to disable this one, because I don't have to set the angle of the projectile. I want the projectile to inherit the angle of the weapon. However, we are not setting the angle of the weapon, not yet anyway, but we will soon. So okay, this should work fine, I guess. I'm just going to check quickly if the shooting works. Okay, it does. although the weapon is not responding yet to the buttons that I'm pressing, which would have to set the angle of this weapon. If I click the mouse, it's also not responding, of course, and it would be the same with the gamepad. I'm not even going to try that. So what we need to do right now is to have the weapon always face the direction of the player's shooting angle, which you already calculate. So I guess we can do something like like setting the weapon's angle, but we should probably set it at all ticks anyway. So I'm just going to move this condition right here, or even further top. So every time we are ticking the player, I'm also going to grab the right instance of the weapon object, and I'm going to set the angle of the weapon object, set angle to players.shooting angle. This should work, or although it might not. Let me just check chat, 1 second. Off to setting up my own stream for it. See, catch you later. Thanks. Sorry if I already missed you, but yeah, I will pop in later if you will be streaming. And good luck if you're still here. Okay, so I guess it's kind of working. I mean, it's not ideal because if I move the mouse, I probably already want the weapon to face the direction of the cursor, but it's not doing that. But we can rectify that as well, pretty easily, I think. But if I keep holding the left mouse button down, then the weapon is following the mouse, which is neat. Okay, let's try the keyboard controls. So yeah, they also work because they also just set the shooting angle instance variable of the player. So I'm guessing that it should work with the analog sticks as well. And once again, they do, but I also, okay, no, sorry, they absolutely do. So even if I don't shoot, just move the right analog stick, then the player's weapon is moving in the direction of the analog stick, which is neat. I think this is all right. Okay. I just need to supplement this mouse stuff. So if there is mouse movement, I want the shooting angle to be set. Yeah. Okay, so to detect this, we can either just, yeah. Let me just think a little, because I kind of want to keep things optional in a way that if the player chooses to go from keyboard and mouse control to gamepad control in the middle of the playthrough, they should be able to do that. However, yeah, I think I know what I'm going to do. So also, I think I'm going to do some little organization stuff, and for this, I'm going to copy some things from my template. As I already mentioned, I have a little template, and it has a bunch of mostly empty event sheets. I'm just going to copy these and paste them into my project, and I will talk a little about these as well. So also while I'm at it, I think I'm going to copy these as well. Everything that you see that is prefixed with an underscore, it denotes that there are no events or nothing, no variables, no functions, no custom actions in it. They are literally just here, so I don't have to type all this for a new project. This should also be prefixed. What the heck? Okay. I'm not going to copy this, not now anyway. However, did I miss anything? Audio, right. For some reason I did not copy this. Good. Okay, so now I have all these empty event sheets, and also the e-input event sheet, which is for having events that are related to keyboard, mouse, gamepad, touch input. They should reside in this event sheet. And right now from the template, I copied this, and it has this little group called utilities. and it just monitors if the player is ever pressing the F or the R keys on the keyboard. And if they are, then for the F key, this toggle full screen function is called, which is in utilities right here. This function just checks if the game is running in full screen. If it is, then it cancels the full screen, so it exits the full screen mode. And if it's not, then it requests full screen from the browser using one of the scaling options. Right now I use letterbox scale, so this should work fine. Also, I think I got a new follower. Did I? I just heard the sound. Good God, why am I such a noob at this? Mags, holy crap. Thank you. Whoa. This is so nice of you. Thank you so much for the follow. And also the shout out. I did not see the shout out. Thank you so much. I have no idea how you managed to find me, but I'm glad you did. Thank you. Right, where was I? Oh yeah, I know. Input stuff. One more, yeah, and we hit that follower goal. Neat. So yeah, okay, I was talking about this little utility function that toggles the full screen mode if you press F, and if you press R, then it just calls this browser action called reload, and it literally reloads the whole tab in your browser, which restarts the game completely. It reloads the page. So yeah, this is here, and in E input we are also going to add something that is actually not a utility but an actual player input. So I'm just going to create a group called player, move it right here, and under player I'm going to add a what? We don't have the mouse. Oh, I'm in the wrong freaking project. Yeah, that happens. Okay, sorry. Let me just open up the right project. Okay, so this is where I'm going to create the group called player, and I'm going to add an event here, and here I'm going to reference the mouse special object, and there's a little trigger called and what happened right now? Mr. Zombie UK, hey there, thank you for the follow, and we have probably reached our follower goal, or yes, indeed we did. Thank you so much, guys, I appreciate it a lot. That's really nice of you. And feel free to stick around or not, as you prefer. I'm making a little game for the Captain Coders Learn You a Game Jam, and it's going to be a little basic 2D action game, a top-down shooter, following the steps of Nuclear Throne and other similar games, but it will be a lot more basic, although I hope that I can juice it up a little in the end. But still, I'm just working at the base mechanics. So right now we have player movement, aiming, and I'm right now at the process of adding a proper weapon that actually follows the player and also follows the direction of the mouse or the right analog stick on your gamepad, if that's what you're using for aiming. So the thing that I was doing, and I'm also finished with it, yes, I was looking for this. So there's an event, or I mean a condition, that is actually a trigger that says mouse on movement, which also fires every time that you move the mouse in the game's window. So this is what I'm going to use to set the direction of the angle of the shooting angle. Yeah, I'm just going to copy this right here, I think. Or even better, I'm going to copy this, because this is also happening, the same thing, when you are pressing the left mouse button. Yes, Mr. Zombie, this is Construct 3 indeed. You come from Construct 2? Really? That's cool. When did you make the switch? If that's not a super secret information. And did you switch from Construct 2 right to Godot? Or you did some Unity stuff, if I remember correctly? My memory is so freaking bad. Please do feel free to elaborate, or not, if you don't want to, but if you do, then I would be glad to hear a little background story, because I know that you started probably a lot earlier than I did. I mean, if you used Construct2, then there's a good chance that you're a game dev veteran at this point. Meanwhile, I'm just going to, okay, on mouse movement, I'm setting the player's shooting angle. And once again, I'm not caring about which player because I only have one. So I'm just going to set the instance variable shooting angle on mouse movement. Let's check if it works. It does not, but I have a hunch why this is not working. So in my template, there's this special event sheet called level, and it kind of matches the layout name, which is level. But since it is an event sheet, it has a little emoji in it, because that's just how I roll. And I'm going to rename my main event sheet to level as well, since I already have the level layout. So yeah, and if I open it, as you can see, this bit is missing, which is the inclusion of the other event sheets. Now, if you ever want to make an event sheet separately, but use some parts of it in Construct, then you only have to make Construct import the event sheets that have actual events in it. So for example, in the E input sheet, we have proper events, which have conditions and actions and stuff like this. So if I want the E input sheet to run when I'm using a layout that is having the level event sheet set, I mean, this wasn't a sentence, let me just show you. So if I select a layout like level, it's possible to set only one event sheet for it. And right now the level with the little map emoji event sheet is set like this, but this event sheet can include a bunch of other ones. But you only have to include event sheets which have proper events, so stuff like this in it. If you only have custom actions, functions, variables, or constants, then you don't have to include those, because they are always automatically included. They are always available in any of the event sheets. So yeah, right now the main event sheet, or now it's level, is this one, and I'm going to move some stuff from this to other event sheets in a second. But meanwhile, I'm just going to copy the inclusion stuff from my template and paste it right here and move it to the top. So now all the other event sheets, I mean only these ones under the events subfolder, are now included in the level event sheet. So now they should run, because the problem before was that this was not running because the event sheet was not included in the one that is set as the event sheet for the layout. Whoa, I am saying event sheet a lot. Okay, but now as you can see, it kind of works, because if I move my player and move my mouse, yeah, it's not great. The problem is if I don't move my mouse, then the on mouse movement trigger doesn't fire, and this also means that the weapon is not facing the mouse, which is not great, because maybe I just want to keep, for example, my mouse on an enemy and then move with the player or the kite or something. Yeah, okay, I think I'm just going to do things differently and have this happen at all times for now. Although this is not too great if I want to support multiple inputs, but I'm just going to think about this sort of stuff. Meanwhile, I'm moving the set shooting angle stuff right here, which just means that it will run at every tick. So if I don't move my mouse but move my player, then the weapon is still facing the mouse cursor, which is neat. But the problem is that if I move my mouse outside, for example, and try to do some aiming with the gamepad, now it's not doing it because it's being replaced with the mouse cursor angle calculation stuff. So I have to figure out a way to decide if I want to even move stuff with the mouse, and I think I might have an idea, not a clean one, but something that could work. Less than 8 days to finish the game. Which game are you talking about, Flavius? You mean this one? Oh yeah, we are indeed below the 8 day mark. Yeah, it's probably going to be a wonky prototype because I usually make wonky prototypes, so yeah. Okay, so what did I want to do? Okay, so I might want to do something like if the player moves the mouse, then it should start a little timer, and it should run for a few seconds. And if the player is still, not a few seconds, probably a lot longer. No, this is not going to be the one that I'm doing. Okay, so maybe the mouse cursor shooting angle stuff should only happen. I mean, it should happen every time, but if the player is using the gamepad or the keyboard to set the shooting angle, then it should override the, yeah, it should override the mouse cursor based angle calculation thing. So what if I just move this right here? Okay, so the mouse cursor stuff is still working, I guess. I can move or stop the mouse and the weapon is still facing its way. And if I use the keyboard to set the angle, it's also working, but the second that I stop pressing the buttons, then it will reset back to the mouse cursor's position, which is not great. Also, the same should probably, yeah. Okay, that's all right. I think I know what I'm going to do. So every time the player is moving the mouse, I want a variable to set that, okay, the mouse has moved. And this variable should be set to a different value if there's either keyboard-based angle setting going on or the gamepad one. So for this, I think I'm just going to utilize a global variable, and global variables I always put in the vState event sheet. So this will only have global variables in it. I'm just going to call it isMouseActive, and by default it's going to have the value 0, which means no. In construct there's only 3 possibilities if you want to create a variable, whether it be an instance variable of an object or a global variable. You can either do Boolean, number, or string. I think someone in the construct Discord, community Discord, said something that meant that Booleans are essentially just numbers, and this is another reason not to use Booleans. And the other reason is that you can't really pass, for example, if you have a function that has a Boolean parameter, and you're calling this function from another function which also has a Boolean parameter, you can't really pass it through. So you have to make a little if-else condition stuff and check if the incoming, the input Boolean parameter was false, then call the function with the false parameter, or do the same thing with the true one, which is horrendous. And this is one reason, the main reason that I'm not using Booleans in construct. So I'm just going to set this to number, and it's going to be a global variable, and this is fine. So if the isMouseActive variable is set to 1, then I want this action to run. So right here, I think I'm just going to move this and check if the global variable called isMouseActive is set to 1, but I don't really use 1 and 0 in this sort of deal. I prefer to use yes and no, and these are just macros or global constants to be precise, defined right here in my vMacros sheet. There are 3 special types, one called no, which has the numeric value 0, one called yes, which has the numeric value 1, and one called nothing, which has the numeric value -1. And this one I usually use for things when I want to store references to object instances in variables. In construct there is a thing called UID, which is unique identifier or something, of every object instance that you have in the game. So each object instance is going to have a different unique UID. Unique UID is nice because it's unique. So, okay. And if I want something to have no reference to no object, that I usually just use this. the -1, because UIDs will never be -1. Okay, that was a quick detour. So, okay, if the global variable isMouseActive is set to yes, which is 1, then I want to have the shooting angle calculated based on the mouse cursor's position. And if this does not happen, then this action shouldn't run, so this is all right. And now we are back to the e-input event sheet, and I'm going to re-add this mouse on movement condition, I mean event, and I'm just going to say set value is mouse active, yes. So when there is movement on the mouse, then I'm going to set this global variable to yes, which is 1. And if there are any keyboard-based aiming going on, I think I'm just going to set the value to no, because I don't think the player will simultaneously use the keyboard to aim and the mouse to aim as well. So yeah, this should be all right. And the same probably goes for analog aiming, which is done with the gamepad. So I'm also going to set the isMouseActive variables value to 0 or no. Okay, I'm going to check chat. Yes, the jam. I don't have to guys to join. That's all right, Flavius. I mean, you shouldn't feel. I mean, you shouldn't fear it or anything, but I don't think the captain would like you to have a bad time either. So maybe next time or something. But I don't think it's a problem if you make something that is a little wonky or something, but it's totally up to you. I always join jams at the last minute anyway, because even if I'm making something for the jam, I'm just not so sure that if I'm going to finish it or have even it at a state that I want to submit. So usually I just submit at the last minute, and I only join the jam at the last minute. But I am making an exception this time because I'm pretty sure that I'm going to submit something for this jam because I really want to. So this is why I already joined each event for the jam. I'm going to hydrate. 1 second. Also, Resurrected Studio said, set a target X and Y at a radius if you are not showing shooting with distance. Let me just try to understand that. Oh yeah, I think I know what you mean. Shooting with distance, right? So yeah, I'm only shooting via angle. So if that's what you mean, so the player doesn't have to, for example, using the mouse, have to position the cursor on the enemy. They could just position it at the same direction of the enemy, but for example closer to the player, and the player will still shoot in the direction, and eventually the projectile will hit the enemy. If that's what you mean. You can switch to controller arrows or mouse. What? Sorry, I'm being a little thick today, I think. Meanwhile, let me just check if this not so elegant solution that I implemented works or not. So, okay, mouse aiming is happening. If I leave the mouse at this position, this is also all right, because yeah, the game still haven't received any input from the right analog stick or the J, K, L, and I keyboard buttons, but now it does. And if I stop, yeah, this is all right, I think. So now the mouse cursor is ignored. But if I start moving it again, then once again, it's mouse-based aiming again. And let me just do the same stuff with the gamepad. So my gamepad is always sleeping. I can't believe that they use this on a freaking submarine. Never mind. So, okay, the aiming is done with the right analog stick. The left analog stick is for movement, or I can also use the D-pad. And yeah, the mouse cursor is once again ignored, but if I move it, then it's restored. I think this is all right. I mean, this just means that the player has the option to switch between different input schemes while in the game. I don't know if anyone's going to do that, but hey, it's possible. Oh yeah, mid-game. Yeah, indeed. I don't know if it's a good thing to have that, but this is just how I usually do stuff. So yeah. Okay, I'm going to create a new version of the project. I'm in an export and pop it on itch. So if any of you good folks wants to give it a try, then you can. I'm just going to export, save the zip. And run the script, which uploads it to itch. There's which, twitch, and itch. And dozy and make and titch. What? Okay. I'm just going to... Oh, did it already run? Oh yeah, it did. Okay, since I copied those events from the event sheet, this means that I can just press F, right? To switch to full screen. Oh yeah, indeed I can. Neato. One thing that I noticed that the bullet is spawning at kind of a tricky position. It's overlapping the barrel of the gun, the weapon. And this is because I think the projectile's origin is set to its midpoint, which I'm going to rectify in a second. Also, I don't think I'm going to need my template project anymore. I'm just going to close it because I always mix the two. I mean, I always confuse the two windows. So, okay. Let me just check the projectile situation. So yeah, this origin point should be probably right here. I'm just going to lazily quick assign it to the left point. I could also click it, of course, but this is more precise. So right now it looks better because the bullets are not overlapping the weapon anymore. So when they spawn, so this is neat. Let me just bump up the version number of the project to 4 and make a new version of the project file. I'm just going to change this to 4 as well. And check the little to-do list. So add first weapon, make it fire the first projectile. This is, I guess, done. How far are we in time-wise? Okay, it's been 2 hours. I still have kind of... Okay, my brain capacity is depleting, but I think I might go a little further. Player health, yes, I might do this, but I'm going to keep it simple, as I usually do. So the player's family will need to have an instance variable that holds the player's health. I also usually go with another instance variable that has the player's maximum health in it. So if the player will take damage but then heal, then the player shouldn't be able to go above a certain health value. So I think I'm just going to go with this route. I'm going to create a family instance variable on the player's family, which only has one object in it, the player, but I usually do stuff on the family. I mean, by stuff, I mean instance variables and behaviors. So I'm going to create a new instance variable. And I'm going to say it should be, I don't know, HP. And for some reason, I'm going to set the initial value to 1. I'm also going to have a different value called max HP. I'm not so sure about the name, but the great thing about construct is that you can just at any point rename a variable and nothing will be ruined, because construct automatically renames all references to the variable or an object, for example, or you can even change the name of behaviors, for example, if you want. And this will also automatically propagate in the background, so you don't have to worry about this sort of refactoring. So renaming is usually done pretty easily. And if you're using macros, then you can do the same for example, tags, tween tags, timer tags, stuff like this. Okay, so max HP I'm going to set to 1 as well. This just means that the player has 1 lousy health point, but in the object templates, no, not the object templates, the level. So this is where the player is right now. But I think I might want to move them soon to the object templates layout, because I don't really like having these objects that could be created during runtime in the main layout. So never mind that. I'm just going to set the maximum HP of the player to 10, for example. And also I am going to create a little custom action for the player that initializes stuff. And this mostly handles things like setting the health points of the player to the max health points. This is just how I do things. I'm not saying that this should be done in any case, in all cases, but I just like doing this. So I think it's also time to have a little organization, because this event sheet is getting big. And it mostly has these player custom actions in it anyway, but I'm going to move those. So I'm going to create a new folder under event sheets and name it actions. I'm also going to check chat. Sure, Resurrected Studio, if you're still here, thanks for popping in, and I will indeed keep updating this each page, and at one point I will probably move it to another each page, because I have to come up with a name for this game, and then I will create a new itch page for that. So yeah, absolutely. And I will probably pop it in the Construct Discord as well, so if you still move around in these parts, then you will probably see it anyway. So yeah, thanks for checking in, and thanks for all the info as well. Really appreciate it. So actions event sheet, and I'm going to call it a player for some reason, and I'm just going to select a nice little emoji for this. I usually go with this one, just a generic person that signifies that players are usually controlled by humans. So yeah, and this event sheet naming stuff. So we have events, and all event sheets under events are prefixed with the little e, so, the lowercase e. Under functions, the prefix is f. Under values, the prefix is v. So under actions, of course, it should be a. And that's about it. So yeah, I'm going to select the layers handle input and tick custom actions, cut it to the clipboard, and paste it right here. So I'm just going to close these so they don't take up too much space, and I'm going to create a new custom action for players called init. And once again, I'm blanking on the freaking name, but in Godot, when you create a new node, there are two methods. One is process, which is the one that I call tick, and the other is I am skimping on the name. Yeah, the other one that is called when the object enters the tree or something, so when it's created. And for me, this is it init. So this custom action will run at only once when a instance of the player's family or the player object is created, and this will have just some initialization stuff. So if any values, for example, of the player instance has to be set up, then they will be set up here. So I'm going to add an action to set the health of the player to whatever is defined in their max HP instance variable. So yeah, I'm just going to make sure that this one is called every time the player is created. And to do this, I just tend to have an event that says an object is created, and all of these events will go into the eCreated event sheet. So the eCreated event sheet just usually has a bunch of events that something is created, and on this something call the init custom action, and that's it. So I'm going to add an event. I'm going to press E because I prefer using the keyboard for this sort of thing, and you also can because this is not GDevelop, for example. So yeah, I'm going to say players created, and I'm going to press A and type players and init, which is the custom action that I just made. So every time a player instance is created, the init custom action for that specific instance is run. And for now, it only says the HP of the player to the max HP, which is defined right here on the one instance that I have of the player for now on the level event sheet. So the health of the player should be 10. when they are spawned, and they also need to have some functions that change the health points. So I think I might create a new custom action for this sort of thing. So not an event, sorry, a custom action. And this is one thing that I cannot do with the keyboard yet. Actually, if you're watching, I have a issue in the GitHub feature requests repo that says, please make a shortcut for this. Thank you. So I'm going to call it change HP, I guess. So it's kind of universal. I can add a HP change parameter that is a number, and I can just call this custom action every time the player gets hit or healed. If I want to heal the player, I will pass a value that is positive, and if I want to hit them, I will pass a negative value in the HP change parameter, and they will just damage the player. And the visuals, for example, can also be handled right here. So at first, I definitely want to set the value of the health instance variable of the player right here in any case. So let me just say players and set value HP, and I could do something like self.hp plus HP change, which just means that it gets added on. So if it's a positive number, then it's a healing stuff. But I also want to clamp it, I think. I don't really want to have the player go in negative values for their health. So Infinite started streaming, nice. Hopefully they will continue for a while, because I think I will probably wrap up in like 30 minutes or something. I have a hunch that my brain cells are going to die by then, and then I can just raid them, for example. It would be really neat since they showed up, and I appreciated that a lot. So yeah, I think I might do that. Right, I'm just going to finish doing the health stuff, and do I want anything else? Yeah, adding the first enemy. Yeah, let me just get back to this at first, and then I will decide if I want to add some more stuff to the game before I finish up for today. So instance variable HP, yeah, okay, so this is all right, but I can use the clamp system action that just sets the value, but it can also have a lower and an upper bound. So the lower bound should be 0. I don't really want the player to have -2 health or something. And the upper bound should be I can say self dot max HP. So this just means that, for example, if the player has 9 health and they pick up something that has them 2 points, then they won't go to 11 HP, because max HP is right now 10. Although since it's a variable, it's quite possible that, for example, the game might have something that upgrades the player's maximum health, and I can just increment the max HP instance variable to something, and then it will be possible to reach that level of health. So yeah, I think this is fine. Also, I think I might want to do some really basic effects right here, just so we can see that the player is taking damage, for example. And to do that, I think I'm going to, yeah. So if the HP change variable is negative, then the player took damage. So I think I can probably just say compare variable HP change. If it's less than 0, then I want the player to have a little red color overlay effect. So I'm just going to say set color, and I'm just going to do the superlate thing and set it to so the RGBX expression is one of the expressions that you can use to define or declare colors in Construct, and the RGBX one actually operates in a scale from 0 to 100. This is RGB, so the first value is the red, this is the green, and this is the blue one. There's also RGBX X255, which is exactly the same, but it operates on a 0 to 255 scale. So I can just do this. Why is that yellow? Also, what am I typing? Okay, now it's not. Okay, so it was weird. I thought it was going to be red. Never mind. So RGB X255, this means exactly the same if I do this. And I will just do this because at one point I will probably have a nice little color from a palette from low spec or something, and I will just use that as the color. But right now I'm happy with the full red color, I think. And I also want the player to have a little tween. So when the red tint is applied, I want to fade out this red tint after a while. And for this to work, I will probably either need to have a timer or a tween, but I think tween is the one that I'm going to use. But this means that it needs to be added to the players family at first. So if you want any object to tween something, in Construct you have to give it the tween behavior as well. So after setting the player's color to red, I'm going to also tween something. And for this, I'm going to use the tween one property action and select the property that is color. The end value should be RGBX 100, 100, 100, because by default, all sprites and every other object that has an actual visual representation in Construct, they have the white color assigned to them, which means that there is no color overlay on the object. So they just show up as you specify using the animation editor, and there's no color shenanigan going on. So I think I'm just going to set the time to, I don't know, 0.3, and I'm going to look for a nice little easing for this. And I always use easings.net for this sort of thing, because easings.net has a nice little visual representation of the different easing functions, and all of these are available in Construct. So I want the easing to, I guess, slowly in the end fade back to the original one. So it's a sudden hit of red, although so I might want to do something like this, or maybe the other one, the opposite. Okay, let's just go ease out cubic at first, and we'll see how it looks. Out cubic is the easing I selected. I don't want the object to be destroyed at the end of the tween, so I'm just going to set all these to the default no values, and I don't want the tween to repeat or ping pong, of course. So however, I usually specify a tag so I can reference the tween later. I'm not going to do that right now, but I usually do. So since this is probably temporary anyway, I might not bother, but usually I just declare a macro, I mean global constant, in vMacros, something like this. So there's like tween damage or something. So something that refers to the visual representation of the tween, in this case damage. And since I created it, I might as well refer to it. One other great thing about using macros is that you can do this, right click and find our references, and then you can just see where did you use that macro, which is really neat. And you can't really do the same thing with string literals. So if you're using string literals in tags, then you don't have this option to, for example, look for where do I do visual damage effect in my game. Here. Okay, so Labius also asks, are you going to have also the inventory, or going with the secret theme? What secret theme? I have no knowledge of this. Is there a secret theme, or is there the theme secret or something? I don't know. I think I want to do the single slot inventory thing, by the way. I mean, that's the plan. So the player can only have one weapon at any time, and they can drop it if they want and pick up another one. That's my initial plan, but I may or may not do that. Whoops, 1 second, my phone is going off. Oh, just a notification. That's cool. Okay. While I'm at this, I'm going to hydrate. Okay, so I'm also finished with this tween stuff, but I forget something. If the player is taking damage, and they are taking damage during this 0.3 second window again, then the tween might do something weird by restarting. So just to be safe, I usually do stuff like players stop tween. And how good that I used a macro for the tween type. I can just reference it right here. Boom. So if the damage is already, a previous damage effect is already taking place, then I just first stop it, set the color of the layer of the player to red once again, and then start the tween back to white, or the no color overlay thing. So yeah, this should work fine. But since there are no enemies, I just want to test it by pressing a button and I'm seeing if the player is actually taking damage. So for this, I usually do something like create a group in e-input, which handles all keyboard inputs, and not just keyboard, but anything else that are triggers. I'm going to call it dev, and I'm also going to add a little to-do, this kind, to-do prod disable. And this is just so if I ever make the game production version, the one that I want to show other people, then I probably want to disable this group, because this group will have stuff like developer cheats. For example, I press a key and I get a bunch of stuff. I get healed, I get damaged in this case, or something. So this group I can just disable like this, and any events that are inside this group won't run at this point. And then I can just make a production build of the game and put it up on the proper itch page, for example. Yeah. And for this, I usually have this little comment before I publish a game. Upload to a public page. I usually just search for to do using the integrated find function in construct. And if there are any to do prod comments, I go to them and do stuff accordingly. In this case, disable the group. So yeah, let me just get back to this. I want to create a keyboard event monitor stuff. For example, if I press I don't know, B, I don't know why, oops, I moved that. Okay, so if I press B, then the player should be damaged. Sorry. So players change HP, and let's just go with -1 at this point. Okay, so this just means that the player's instance variable should decrease by 1, and there should be a little red tween effect on the player, but nothing else should happen. The You Are the Monster theme. Really? I had no idea about this. What the? Is it not on the page? Certainly isn't, but it might be in the Discord and I might have missed it. Whoa. I'm going to check on that. Thanks for the info, Flavius, by the way, and have a good lunch. Bon appetit. Good to know. I had no idea that there's a secret theme as well. Huh, I wonder if I can incorporate that as well. Okay, I'm going to think about that now, but this is fine. So let's just run the game. And if I press B, boom, there's a little red flash. The player is taking damage. It's a little, I don't know. The easing might not be the right one, or maybe the 0.3 seconds is a little short. I'm just going to close this tab and set the tweening. So it was OutCubic that I used. Okay, let's go with something that keeps the red effect for longer and more slowly. I mean, not slowly, but only fades it out at the last part of the tween. Wow, this wasn't a sentence. Okay, let's just go with ease in quart, for example. In quart, ick. Boom. Okay, it's still essentially the same. Okay, maybe I'll just increase the time to 0.5, for example. I don't really see a big difference, and I'm guessing that you guys also don't really see a big difference because the frame rate might be quite bad on stream. Yeah, I mean, it's alright, it's working, so I'm just going to keep it this way. And also I am going to check if the player is actually dead at this point, because if they are, then I don't even really want to do the whole twin thing. So players compare instance variable HP, and if it's just to be safe, I'm going to set it less or equal, even though because of the clamp it shouldn't really go below 0, but why not do that? So if the player's health is 0 or fewer, I mean less, then we should just kill them. And for now, I'm going to do the easiest thing. Just say players destroy. This action just removes the player object instance from the game. And since we are syncing the weapons, I mean the weapon has the destroy with parent property set in the hierarchy, then the weapon should be destroyed as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, boom, the player's dead. Dramatic. Okay. I think I'm going to say player health is done, although it's not really flashed out. I mean, yeah, the healing is not really handled. I mean, it's kind of handled, but the problem is that if a player picks up healing stuff and they have max health, then maybe I shouldn't even call this little custom action anyway. I might get back to this part later. We don't even have pickups, so yeah. Right, okay, so let me just check the to-do list. So add first enemy physics-based move and then starts at line of sight to player. This is something that I'm not going to do now. Destroyed enemies should drop something that can be collected by the player. I don't think I'm going to do this either, because, you know, I have to have an enemy first. And add touch input. I think I'm going to procrastinate that as well. So I guess it's time to finish up for today. How long I've been streaming? Yeah, more than 2 hours. That's all right. I think I'm going to have a little lunch as well. Flavius is a good point. So thank you for watching, and if you are watching this on YouTube, be sure to look for other parts of this, I guess, video series, tutorial, maybe, if you want to see how the rest of the game goes, because I do have an intention to put a bunch of really basic 2D action game stuff and top-down shooter stuff as much as I possibly can until the end of the jam, which is, yeah, still I have a week, which is neat, but I don't really have a lot of time to do more development. I'm guessing that there will be like, hopefully there will be like 4 or 5 more streams, and then I will probably call it a finished product or something. Right, so once again, thank you so much for being here, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you know what to do. Thank you guys. I'm going to set up a little raid, I think, if I can, because that was the plan. I'm just going to do a little... Is Infinitani streaming? Yes, they are. Nice. Okay, I'm going to start raid right now. I have no idea what they are using, but it looks like Godot. Oh yeah, definitely Godot. Neat. So let's go over there and welcome them, because it is their first stream, I think. So yeah, let's bring the positive energy to their stream. Thank you for watching, and stick around. I will continue this week, probably either tomorrow or the day after that. I don't really have a schedule, but yeah, be sure to follow me and maybe you'll catch me live once again. Thank you so much for watching once again, guys. Bye-bye.